Okay. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
We're not only talking about black lives when they end. Black life has to be treated with love, dignity, and respect. And then here we are, seeing how decades and decades and decades of further disregard was presented to them when they should have been honored and should have been loved and embraced and should have been able to rest in peace and power. Say it with me. Fuck you, Penn.
Fuck you, Penn.
Fuck you, Penn.
Fuck you, Penn.
And fuck Princeton.
Fuck Princeton.
And all these motherfuckers who think that it is okay to disregard the humanity of anybody. Because we're not even only just talking about this moment. And they say it's okay because they think, oh, well, this is a part of this cultural moment. This is how the science goes. This is how we do it. We have to do this. This is what excuses us experimenting on human beings. They've been doing this to our black bodies for hundreds of years. In the name of science, in the name of study. We are not subjects of study. We are human beings, goddammit, and our lives matter.
We're going to start pouring libation for the warriors, the warrior women, the warrior men, to give us strength to deal with Penn and Princeton, to get the remains of our babies back to their family so that they can deal with them in a way that feeds their spirit and honor their legacy as their bloodline, as their social family, as their biological family. Ashe. Ashe.
Reggie Shell.
Ashe. 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 Father Paul Washington. For all the unknown remains in this building over here, the building need to be burnt down. We're going to pour this libation, we're going to end this libation for the unborn, because they're on their way here to join us. As we speaking, some babies are being born. So we pour and saying we welcome they're joining us in this struggle. And that we want to make sure we clear some space for them, so because they're going to have to struggle. You can't avoid the struggle. You know, and they're on their way here. And we say we building a place for them to stand next to us in this struggle. And that we're going to prepare them to struggle, prepare them to stay steadfast, prepare them to respect all of humanity, living and dead, and prepare them to challenge these institutions that have no regards to anything except the dollar.
Yes.
Ashe?
Ashe.
Ashe?
Y'all know this is a heavy moment, and people need energy. People need energy. That energy is a way of showing love, okay? Come on.
On the move. First, before I say anything, I want to thank everybody that's showing this love for my family, for my sisters, for my Move brothers and sisters that were murdered on May 13th, 1985. Mama Maisha said that building needed to be burned down. I couldn't agree more. See, you have to bear with me. Ever since I learned about this thing, that keeps happening, and I can't stop it. I talked to my mom about it yesterday, and she was trying to encourage me to do some breathing exercises. And I'm trying to listen to her, but just bear with me. On May 13th, 1985, the government dropped a bomb. And they killed 11 people. 11 of my Mu brothers and sisters. My family members. And when they did that, medical examiners were paid to find out what happened to these dead people. And they took my Mu family, my brothers and sisters, to a lab, and they left them unrefrigerated. Their bodies were decomposing. And they did such an egregious thing at that point that they were fired and stripped of their license. The people that took over, or were supposed to be taking over and continuing this job in an ethical way, were the people that we are out here protesting against today.
On the move! On the move! On the move! On the move! I first want to say the names Tree Africa and Delisha Africa. And I want us to just think about them for a moment in silence. This is heavy, right? It's heavy. So it was beyond enough when we found out over 2 years ago that Penn had the remains of about 53 people believed to be enslaved. 51 of them from Cuba, from a plantation in Vedado. And 2 crania from black people in the US. And they had some of these crania of enslaved people, indigenous people, displayed in a glass display in an anthropology course within the Museum of Penn. At that moment, when I heard that information, I was so upset. I created a change.org petition. I wrote an op-ed about it. There was some movement, some conversation about repatriation. About a year later, during the uprising, the conversation came up again because Police Free Penn put together some demands, and they expanded the demand that I had, which was repatriation. And there was also a student who wrote an article. Penn decided to say they're going to start a committee to consider the question of repatriation. Fuck their committee. 14 crania of black folks dug up, grave robbed, and their burial site is where the Franklin Field is today. And their burial site is where the Franklin Field is today. And there's black bodies still underneath Franklin Field today. And they're in caskets and they're unnamed. There were other remains that man said he wasn't sure of, and that was the remains of Delisha. And Hameli said, no, I think these are Delisha's remains. Hameli puts out a report. Man contradicts that report in the press, further delaying the giving of these sacred remains to family, right? And so what happens next is Hameli has to re-examine the remains. He does this with some colleagues. And ultimately, he reaffirms his initial report, right? He says, this is the truth of what happened, and these remains belong to Delisha Africa and Tree Africa. The commission says to the medical examiner's office, release these remains using your normal procedures. They were held, parts of their sacred body were held in a box. And 2 researchers connected to the investigation early on were taking the remains between university, treating Tree and Delisha like an academic game of hot potato. This is disgusting. This is gross. This is disgusting. This is gross. This is not normal. This is not right. This is not okay.
Just give a little bit of information to further contextualize what happened.
This is in the early 70s. Rwanda, Africa was beat so bad that her baby was born black and blue. Alberta, Africa, after a demonstration of probably about the air, the water, the soil, the fake health markets, plastic, our water in plastic bottles, the unfair education, the housing issues, the elderly issues, the prison issues, police brutality, whichever one of the things that MOVE was demonstrated about and got locked up. Alberta, Africa was pulled out of a cell at the roundhouse, 8th and Race, while the other sisters was in the cells watching helplessly as a black matron by the name of Robinson, her and other policemen held my sister's legs open and repeatedly kicked her in the womb until she miscarried on the floor of the 8th and Race semi-prison, whatever the fuck they want to call it. Everybody's talking this bullshit about, I'm up, talking that bullshit about our children should not have been in the house on August 8th. They wasn't Mike when he was a small kid. Delisha and all the rest of the kids was in Richmond, Virginia. They had no business down there. They went in there. The kids would sleep on the floor, busted the door open with shotguns and stuff, trampling over top of our kids, snatched our kids from the mother, locked the mothers up, took the children and put them in an orphanage, combed their hair, their locks, pulling hunks out their head, beaten. Our family managed to get them away from them, and we took them from Richmond and brought them all back up here. On the move, and food for thought, and tear this motherfucker down.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
When MOVE children are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When MOVE children are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace. Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back.